Hey everybody, really good to see you. Thanks for the opportunity to share a little bit with you. One of the most important things about you is how you see yourself. Just as important is where you derived that identity, where you got your self-image. How you look at yourself is so important. I'm going to talk to you about one of the most profitable trips ever to the grocery store. Before I do, if this video is a part of a series, we're talking about authenticity. And if you want to make sure you don't miss any of them, please hit that subscribe button, the red subscribe button there, and you'll be the first to find out when new content is uploaded. And that'll be several times a week. The most profitable trip ever to a grocery store. I love this story. A man named Russell went to the grocery store, and he was walking down the coffee aisle, and he looked over at a jar of coffee, and on the label he saw his own face. You see, many years before, Russell had tried out at a modeling agency and had some pictures taken. He never heard back from the agency, but about a decade later, he goes down this aisle. He sees his face advertised on a jar of coffee, and they've been using his face without permission for 10 years. Guess what happened? He sued the company and won about $15 million. Unbelievable. Somebody said the moral of that story is it pays to know who you are. And I want to tell you, knowing who you are is so valuable. We have a common enemy. And the greatest fear of this enemy is that you will be the person you were created to be, that you will fulfill the destiny that you were put here on earth to fulfill. Your enemy fears that, and because of that, he wants to mislabel you. He wants to misbrand you, if you will, and brand you with a false identity that he can use as a yoke around your neck for the rest of your life and distract you from your true purpose and your true destiny. Understand this. Where do they come from? Where do these false identities come from? False identities often come from wounds that are inflicted upon you or words that are spoken over you. That's so important. I want to say it again. False identities often come from wounds that are inflicted upon you or words that are spoken over you. There's a story in the book of Genesis in the Bible about a man who was mislabeled. He was a twin, and he and his brother were actually fighting in the womb. The Bible says their mother felt them fighting with each other in the womb before they were even born. When they were born, the other brother came out, and interestingly enough, his younger brother's hand was on his heel. He was actually grabbing the heel of his older brother when he came out. And the Hebrews were pretty notorious for labeling their children with names. And they called this young man, the second child, they called him heel grabber, or better for our language, meant deceiver. Can you imagine that? In our language, his name is Jacob, and it doesn't mean that to us today. So if your name's Jacob, don't worry about this. But in the Hebrew, they literally called this kid deceiver all his life. All his life. And they did him a terrible disservice. It may not surprise us, shouldn't surprise us, that Jacob the deceiver became a deceiver. Everything he got for most of his life, he got through deceit and lying. Here's a principle you need to understand. If you accept a label over your life, you will live it out. If you accept a false identity in your life, you can be sure that you're going to walk in that identity and you're going to live it out. But you don't have to. You can cast it off. That's the good news of this message tonight, is you don't have to walk in an identity that a wound placed upon you or a bad word placed upon you. They may have hurt you desperately, and you may have gotten the idea that you're a victim. Some of you may be living now under the identity of a victim, and you need to cast that off today and understand that your Creator, God, has a true name for you, has a true identity for you that He longs to give you and longs for you to walk in. Some of you may be suffering under a word. It may have been a careless word spoken by somebody you love. They may have said, you'll never amount to anything. They may have said, why can't you be like your brother, your sister? And they may have said, you're clumsy. They may have said, you're no good. And it often happens as a child, as it did with Jacob. The enemy wants to get to us early when our defenses are down and we don't have the strength to cast those off. But hear me today, God's saying something to you. He's telling you today that you have the authority and the strength to cast off these false identities. Jacob wound up fighting this identity for most of his life. Late in life, Jacob wrestled with God. Next time we're going to talk about that story, and we're going to see something powerful about Jacob's wrestling with God. For now, I want to encourage you and leave you with this. Take stock of the wounds that have come into your life. Look back over your life, as painful as that may be, and look at the times you've been wounded. Write them down and think about, meditate on, pray about what false identity you may have accepted into your life through that wound. Also, take stock of the words that have been spoken over your life. Again, you don't have to receive those. You can cast them off. Take stock of them. Write them down. Write down any false identities you may have received upon your life. And that'll be step one to casting that off. We're going to talk about that more next time. Thank you again for watching these videos. Remember to click subscribe and you'll get the next one. We'll see you then. Much love to all of you, and we're praying for you.